that'll happen. That happens on many a bus ride in this
Yeah.
fair city.
They just happened to be right next to me.
Yeah.
And I got to partake it. Real 3D experience. It's like how we watched Avatar that one time from the
5D
front
experience.
row for 4.5 hours.
It was like you're in a D-box seat, but on the bus, right?
Oh my god. Hella D box. 6 feet D. In 2D in that box.
The curious case of the D-box.
Oh, sick.
Have you ever been in a D-box?
No.
Do you like any of those like extra theater experiences?
Only if it's for an animated film. If I'm watching a Spider-Man, animated version, that'd be cool to have like those glasses. I have glasses on, so I have to wear another pair of glasses on top of it.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
Well, that's 3D though, but like the D-box are the ones that like the seats that shake. And
Yeah. Like, but
and-
you have to wear a thing on top. Like,
Yeah,
even in
because
the
they're
5D.
often paired with 3D
Yeah.
films. Yeah.
And then there's like mist coming from nowhere, and then sometimes your seat shakes, and then
The VIP Cineplex lady farts in your face.
she's spitting the whole.
walks
She's
by.
the mist.
Yeah.
She's out here just spitting on me.
Someone throws chicken wings at you. Yeah.
My God, it's so immersive.
It's so funny because like I love, as you know, as maybe the listeners know, I love cinema and I love the theater going experience. But we were talking about this with a friend that like I don't even get popcorn.
No.
And our friend who we were talking to, shout out to him because
Shout out to Bear.
he agrees that just come and watch the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't really care for like the VIP seats with the recliners are great,
Yeah.
but like all that other shit, I don't understand why anyone wants
No,
to do
the
that.
two of you, a perfect cinematic experience.
Yeah.
And then if I'm in the mix, I ruin it for everyone in the room with the crunch.
Not really.
And the munch.
Popcorn is fine. But like
Yeah.
even the places where it's like, oh, you can get a beer. It's just like, so I can piss 5 times? Like, are you fucking kidding me? No.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless it's Avatar, in which case you could go piss, because every scene is a reminder of aquatic
I kinda wish-
maximumness.
People can probably tell, but I kind of wish during Beau is Afraid I could have gone out to the bar for fucking half an hour. Should have watched it at the good theater where the no
Oh,
kids
God.
are allowed instead of fucking murder theater in downtown.
Murder Theater downtown.
Murder theater
7
capital
p.m.
of
to
downtown.
dead time.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Recommend it.
Oh, anyway, I think your levels are fine.
Okay, good. I got up.
What's up?
What's up,
How's
baby?
it going?
Oh my gosh, I'm just very excited to talk about our cinema today,
Yeah.
because what an experience for me, having seen it only one time as a child and now seeing it a second time and feeling 180 degree
Yeah.
different.
Can I ask you, right, like just to start off, kick off the conversation in style?
Yeah,
Do
boy.
you like this movie?
I was so surprised that I really liked this movie.
We're talking about The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, a film that many people do not like.
Do not like.
And weirdly, like lots of people don't like it. Lots of people think it's Fincher's worst film, which I disagree with. And lots of people don't feel like it's much of a Fincher film, which I agree with.
Yeah.
My thing on this movie is it's always been Fincher doing Spielberg.
That I was just gonna say that if I didn't know any better, I would have assumed it's a Spielberg
And
film.
Spielberg was attached at one time to doing this movie in the early 90s, which this movie was in development hell for like a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
I know that because I watched the incredibly long behind the scenes
Which is
featurette,
longer than the film.
Which is longer than the film. But to be fair, it's because it's directed by the director of The Empty Man. So that makes sense.
Shout out director
Yeah.
Empty Man.
David Pryor. It's really interesting. So many of the things that I saw that were criticisms of this movie, I was like, I agree and I understand.
Yeah.
But I still like this movie.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's all the complaints that we kind of see about this movie is typically from people who think it's either too saccharine and who can't relate to why is everything so positive and good,
Yeah.
or it's from maybe very young people who don't much care for this. Because, like, what? Well, okay, so he's old and then he's young, so he got hot.
It's kind of a hella boomer film, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And one of the things, so it's so funny because I just said like the order I want to talk about things, but I'm gonna skip ahead because I read this really interesting review of the film. Not so much a review as like a retrospective on the movie. It was in Collider, and it was by this guy named Matt Goldberg.
Mm-hmm.
And something he said that I thought was really interesting that I never really thought about before, and I completely fucking agree. Even though Eric Roth is unequivocally a great screenwriter, the script of this film might be the worst part. There are lots of writing things in this movie that just aren't good.
Yeah.
And yet, as this writer says, like, I encourage people to go read this. It's, if you can find it, it's in Collider by an author named Matt Goldberg, talking about Curious Case of Benjamin Button, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so something he says is like, the most curious thing about The Curious Case of Benjamin Button is how it manages to be a tearjerker despite its craven desires to elicit emotion from a director who rejects sentimentality.
Oh, ouch.
And I was like, and throughout the whole thing, he hates the script of this film. And I don't hate it, but I kind of agree. Once I read, I was like, yeah, he's pointing out some things where I'm like, yeah, that is not good. However, he does mention at the end, he's like, for all of my complaints, I still was crying at the end of this movie.
Well, yeah.
As I did too. Every time I watch this movie, it brings me to tears.
And it doesn't even have to be credited to the sequence of events leading up to the buildup of the tears. Just like the last kind of 10 minutes alone is worth being a short film in itself, where you see a baby growing younger. I mean, watching a baby die is pretty sad. And
that's the thing about this movie is I often say that it's very long, but I do think it's kind of worth it for the ending. I think the ending is one of my favorites. And a weird thing, now I want to talk about Fincher a little bit. And something that Fincher is often credited for is the unsentimentality of a lot of his movies. And yet he has two films where at the end, I almost cry every time I watch them because I think the endings are so perfect for what he's done. Like, it all wraps together. And the second one may surprise you, but it all like wraps together so beautifully that it is like, it's just so perfect.
What's the second one?
The Girl with the Dragon
Stop
Tattoo.
It! I freaking knew it.
But now anyone who has the reaction that you just had, I that's one of my favorite movies, as you know. Rewatch that ending because I think it's such a fucking great ending for a movie that is like at times a little sadistic in its like coldness, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he doesn't get a lot of credit for being able to elicit those emotions. But the reason he's able to do that, in my opinion, now let's talk about Fincher. The reason he's able to do that, Fincher is such a technically brilliant filmmaker that he like subconsciously lulls you into this place of being like, everything is perfect for what I'm watching. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to really think about anything else. No. Nothing is out of place. No performance is bad. None of the scenes, like nothing is ever like, well, that's weird. Like, he's so fucking good at that. And that's where I think I get to with him. Yeah.
The thing with Fincher's other films, which is why this one feels so different, is that almost every scene in all his other films are so memorable to me. Like the sequence of events, like it just feels tight and so put together that you can't possibly take out a scene and have the rest of the movie continue. But for Benjamin Button, I feel like there's a lot of little meanderings. There's so many little, somewhat like meaningless segues that just make it so forgettable over time. And then, of course, the ending is still packing a punch. Like, it's all set to the backdrop of Katrina. It's all set to the backdrop of life and preciousness and time and the fantasy aspect of all of it. But because it's just all these tiny little pebbles trying to fill up the jug with stuff, I'm just forgetting the little pebbles.
Yeah. I think there are two aspects of this movie that I think are like really sublime filmmaking. Yeah. And I use that term kind of like me and you were talking about this on the weekend because I watched The Mask, right? I love The Mask. But there's a couple films, and I'm sure Fincher has a few, but I'd really have to think about them. But there's a few films where I can pinpoint this, like, from this moment to this moment, this movie is like perfect. It's a basketball player hitting every basket.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it in our Kingdom of Heaven episode that there's a long sequence where I'm just like, this is such incredible filmmaking.
Tight.
And this movie has two kind of sublime moments like that. And the one is the ending, which I think is like, one is basically from the moment, in my opinion, from when Daisy like finds him as a kid to the very end, I think is really perfectly paced and beautiful. And the other moment, which is my favorite aspect of this movie, is the story about the clock at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Which I think is really sublime.
It's like
filmmaking.
fantasy, right?
Yeah.
It's like a small movie within a movie.
I don't know where that came from, but it's so surprising. And every time I watch it, it's like so delightful and detailed.
Yeah.
And then like, obviously the symbolic meaning of it is just like, yeah, okay, I get it. But then when you see the ending, you're like, oh my God, like I fucking love that motif. You know? Yeah.
Oh, I did not see it coming. Like I would have
No.
thought he would have made a backwards clock and that would be the reality of time going in reverse and straight up being a real thing.
Yeah.
But then when they pair it with wanting to bring back, soldiers who went to war.
Yeah, and also just
beauty.
If nobody knows what the fuck I'm talking about, at the very end of the movie, the last shot you see is the old clock from the train station, and it's covered in a tarp, and then the floodwaters from Katrina start flowing into this room. But the kicker of that is that the clock is still running, which I find just like such a little like kiss at the end of this movie that you're just like, oh, it's still, and that's like the fantasy aspect kind of comes in, and I don't know why, but it symbolically just feels so like lovely and beautiful.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I think it's that there's a lot about like how death is inescapable regardless
matter
of like
how
how
you
hot you
age.
are.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's all good, Brad Pitt. Like you're still gonna be a smoking hot baby. You're still gonna die. No, I was just thinking that the reason the clock still keeps ticking even though it's about to be submerged in floodwater is that like stuff will still go on even though there's adversity. Like even though there's inevitable happenings. Like there's stuff beyond us that just keeps happening.
Yeah.
Regardless of this incredibly magical thing, like a man reversing, like aging in reverse.
Well,
which no one even really addresses all that much. They're just take it as a fact. It's great.
that's the thing though, is that ultimately it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Time, like,
Shit goes on.
This starts to feel like you're just like, am I watching a fucking Christopher Nolan movie? Where because he's so obsessed with like the time, time. I think the lesson of the movie is that like, yes, he ages backwards, but time doesn't move backwards.
No,
and he moves towards death as inevitably as anyone else.
yeah,
But part of the kind of weird tragedy of it is that as he becomes smaller and smaller as a towards being a baby,
yeah,
you know that he's going to die soon, right?
yeah.
And that's kind of the weird aspect of his life is like even at the end too, he dies the way so many elderly people may die who can't remember, and they, as Daisy says, I think in the movie, is like we all end up in diapers one way or the other.
Yeah. It, like the child Brad Pitt portrays so nicely when he doesn't remember how to play some parts of the piano, or someone says in the background like, oh, he's experiencing dementia.
Yeah, he's experiencing
like a
what
7-year-old.
what a dementia patient might. When I read another review in The Guardian by Peter Bradshaw. He hated this movie. He really did not like it.
Oh,
but he says this, I understand, like I get it. He gave 1 star though. But he said this thing which I disagree with, even though it's a really good point. So I have a quote here I'm going to read. So he says, the idea of Button getting younger and younger is not imbued with any great comic or tragic insight, or any insight at all. He is not like Dracula or Dorian Gray. He's just bland-faced Benjamin Button, who eventually, in his youthful pomp, riding his motorcycle or sailing his yacht, has all the interest of a model in a Gap advert.
Yeah.
Which, that's actually, that's a totally valid point.
You know what? That was my question for you.
What?
That the point about Benjamin Button. What does Benjamin Button want?
Well, okay. Can I just expand on this thing?
Yeah.
The thing that I disagree with is, much like if you think about another movie we really love about time, just because someone's perspective of time passing is different than everyone else's, it's still, much like About Time does, it still illuminates what's important in life.
Yeah, through others.
Yeah. And it's still about, just because Benjamin experiences time and is quote unquote special, he's really not in the face of how time works. And the other thing that, like, something about him and Daisy eventually getting together is that, like, he has to realize he's found the right person. And that's part of him growing up, quote unquote, as he grows younger.
Hasn't he always known, though? Like, he's always fancied her. He's always wanted to be with her. She didn't reciprocate for a while.
I don't think that he has. I think that, like, he ascribes some specialness to their relationship, but he doesn't quite know how rare it is to have someone like that in his life who he's always really loved. You know why I think that?
Why?
Because of the man getting struck by lightning.
Oh.
He keeps getting told by this man how he's been struck by lightning
7 times,
which is an incredibly rare thing to happen to anybody. And there's a point where Benjamin Button gives a look at him, and I think that the kind of idea behind that is that, like, Benjamin Button has been struck by lightning by meeting Daisy. He just doesn't realize how important it is to him yet. That's
Fuck. Does he meet her like 7 times?
No.
Like, over the
No. I don't think so. But I think that that's kind of one of the things, is that, like, if you're going to get struck by lightning,
which is love,
so many fucking times, you better fucking live it. You better live your life, because you might get struck by light. You know what I mean?
Which is why people think that he's just a fucking guy. Like, Benjamin Button, Brad Pitt's character, is just sitting by the river, just like fucking going through life as someone who is very unremarkable.
Yeah.
He doesn't do much. And I like that he's not this, like, super charismatic, like, steals every scene that he's in, because ultimately the big thing that he does is that he ages in reverse, and that should be his only trait, so that everybody else can shine around him, like his mom and his adopted mom, like all these people. Yeah, we can live through them if we were to imagine ourselves in his shoes.
It's like it's a weirdly more realistic Forrest Gump, which lots of people compare it to.
Like, Forrest Gump has his own motivations, I think. He's definitely more of a character than Gump ever is, even though Gump is straight out of fantasy.
Sorry, who's more of a character?
Even though Benjamin Button is straight out of fantasy.
Yeah, Gump is more like
doing the most.
Yeah. Benjamin Button, one of the criticisms, which I agree with, is that, like, his character is a little
grifter,
flat,
boring.
Yeah. Grifter. Who's he grifting?
He's, like, through life, like he's grifting, like drifting through. Like, he's a drifter.
Grifter.
He's a drifter.
It sounds like he's like a QAnon conspiracy.
I have a thing in my mouth. It's words.
Yeah.
They're not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I'll be on a boat. Yeah. Or I'll sleep in a train. He just goes through shit.
He's directionless, and he ends up,
the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forrest Gump, like, the fantasy of it is that he ends up being just in the midst of these very important aspects of American history all the time. Whereas, like, Benjamin Button doesn't. He's just living a life,
Isn't the whole point of it to be like, oh, we would all be better off if we started off like Benjamin Button? Because youth is wasted on the young. So the whole point of, like, starting in reverse is something everybody would kind of want to think about once or twice, maybe even try it out for themselves, right? So when BB is old and shrivelly and he sees, like, death around him all the time for the first 20, 30 years of his life, it doesn't make him any different when he starts to grow younger. He just still kind of does boring shit. Everybody else is doing far more remarkable things. Like, Daisy becomes a ballet dancer, and his mom is just as incredible. Like, Taraji P. Henson's character is just a incredible caretaker who so resilient.
She's so good in this movie.
She's like, what a pimp. She's running that shit.
I think one of the aspects I struggle with this movie is that Brad Pitt's character like Benjamin Button is just kind of a cipher. Like, he's not a very interesting character. Everyone else is more interesting than he is,
Yeah. Maybe that's what kills the rating
I think so.
for so many people to be like, bleh.
This is like, we should actually note that this is maybe the only movie we'll ever do by Fincher, because all of his movies are so good.
Bangers.
And this might be the only movie we'll ever do that's been nominated for Best Picture. Which the thing is like, if you look at the Academy Awards from that year, like, this is still probably the best movie that was out that year. Not that year, because The Dark Knight came out that year.
Oh,
shit. But like, of the movies that were nominated for, it was like a pretty fucking weak year.
Okay,
and this movie, I think it got nominated for like 8 Academy Awards and won like 3 or something for the digital effects and
all
for
the CG. I mean, what's up, CG baby? I mean, CG old man. You know me. I feel like it's two of my favorite things: old people,
jazz. I don't know. What were you going to say?
I forgot because of the dementia thing. No, it's cool. It's like death. It's all about death.
Yeah.
It's 100% just gloom, but packaged in a way that it's like, yeah, but it's like Parisian. Look how, it's like fashionable.
Yeah.
It's worn like an accessory.
Fincher, in that behind the scenes thing, he said that one of the kind of core memories he has about kind of wanting to make a movie like this was the death of his father, Jack Fincher, I think, who wrote like Mank and stuff, and Fincher made his script of Mank, and but he was like at his father's deathbed, and like he was talking about how profound it was, and how the thing I think he quotes is that like he wants it to last forever, but he also wants it to be over, kind of thing. And then I think like he wanted to make a movie in the very Fincher way that he talks about things. Like he was like, I don't think about it's like a movie about love. It's not a love story. It's a death story is what I think he said, which is like, yeah, I mean, I guess so. It is kind of like framed around this dying person who's Cate Blanchett in this hospital as this like hurricane is like moving in, and then she eventually passes away at the end of this as well. And I don't know, like it's a weird movie to talk about because, as I said, like I get why people don't like it, but I'm also like, I kind of really do like it at the end of the day. It's just not as special as Fincher's other movies.
Of course not. Of course that's and clearly it's received in the same light. Like it'd be weird if everybody thought this was also phenomenal. and dark and like mysterious and like the ways a Fincher movie would typically be described. This is your typical Spielberg.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's weird to say because like I think Fincher is like one of the best working directors, if not the best working directors today. Maybe do I wish this was made by a different director who could have done a better job of it, but it's nice to see him
totally
do something different because
100%.
Because like a lot of his stuff has this like very pleasing edginess to it, which I really like, and this movie completely does not have that. But at the same time, it's like he tried this, and then after this was like, I'm now going to do whatever the fuck I want because this didn't really work, even though it was very successful. Like it was a very successful movie. Yeah.
And what a fucking bold choice of cast too. Like he went all out, and of course he knew all those names would say yes. And even for a movie that's largely shot at night, I remember like everything being kind of just like nighttime scenes. It's still not dark.
It's like the lighting, very colored and like ambery.
Like
it's different than his other stuff.
And then all of his stuff typically. Fucking love it. What's up?
Yeah,
I love it. I love it when directors do stuff outside their typical fucking route.
It's like one thing that's just so fucking great about Spielberg is that he does so many different things, and like when you look back at his filmography and you're just kind of like, oh man, Spielberg decided to do this thing, and then you're just like, it's so fucking good. It's like one of the best versions of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of the various types of movies that he's made, even though Spielberg has made far more films than Fincher, it's so impressive to see that. And I think Fincher, he can always be relied on to make a movie like The Killer, which is one of the reasons we're doing this. Is like when you see the trailer for The Killer, you're just like, yeah, that looks like a fucking Fincher movie, you know?
Yeah.
But even when I was like looking back, because I watched a bunch, and like you look back at something like Fight Club, and you're just like, this movie is phenomenal, but it's like very weird for a lot of Fincher movies, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's, what if fucking Tarantino directed Benjamin Button?
Yeah.
You know, it would just
I would
be,
like that.
It would be cool to
Yeah.
see someone with a totally different style take on something that is sweet
Yeah.
and almost too sweet.
Yeah, I think maybe the only director who's less sentimental than Fincher is
Yeah.
Tarantino in
Yeah.
this world, and like,
I have a question. If Benjamin is born a baby-sized old man, why didn't he die an old man-sized baby?
science, babe.
Hate this journey for me. Hate it.
Can we talk, like, because we might never get a chance to do this again. Can we talk a little bit about Fincher?
Let's do it.
What are your like broad strokes feelings on him? We've said a lot of them, but like,
I can't think of another Fincher, is what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
when I think of a certain type of movie, I can't be like, oh, Seven is just like da-da-da's movie.
yeah,
I can't. Fight Club is just like this type of movie. No. It's so specific to him that any other movie that if I had to compare like Seven to something, I'd be like kind of like Zodiac, which is also him. So I can't think of another name that is not like literally his fucking style, which he ate. Like oh my God, he owned that shit.
He's like one of the few filmmakers who I get very like legit excited about when I know something of his is like coming out, because even someone like Spielberg, who I do love, it's like, I don't know, some like I wasn't crazy about the Fablemans and things like that.
Yeah.
And then, but to be fair to that, like I didn't love Mank either. But like
Social Network blew my fucking mind.
Oh yes, so when I was like younger, I didn't really have much of an awareness of David Fincher, the director, right?
Yeah.
I liked Fight Club. I think I had seen Seven and I liked Seven.
Mm-hmm.
But like I didn't really, and I remember seeing Zodiac in theaters and being very like, I don't even know what to think about that. And now Zodiac is like among my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Like I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then I remember seeing Social Network and kind of becoming more aware of who Fincher was.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo but like even Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, like that movie, I developed a fondness for it over the years since it's come out.
Yeah.
But like right away, I wasn't like, oh my God, this is one of the best movies ever. It was no Departed, you know, but like.
And it doesn't even have to have like all of these layers of mystery or even something that is so clear cut and linear like Panic Room. Such a great idea for how the way it is Fincher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't take your eyes off.
I hate Panic Room.
You don't like Panic Room?
Yeah, I don't like Panic Room.
It's hard to like look away when like certain things are happening in the Panic Room.
Yeah. Have you seen The Game?
No.
The game I actually do.
Oh wait, I have,
yeah.
of course.
It's a Michael Douglas
fucking
movie.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like Panic Room didn't have to be The Game. And it got the job done.
The weird thing is that like we're sitting here, we're talking about how much we like Benjamin Button, which isn't even amongst his best movies, and it's still quite a good film.
Yeah.
Whereas like I think like Alien 3, obviously he hates it as much as most other people, even though I don't think Alien 3 is that bad of a movie. And like I don't think it's that bad, honestly.
Yeah.
But his good movies, his best movies are so fucking great.
Oh my God.
And they like elicit rewatching, and like I don't know, man. He's just such a sublime filmmaker.
But I'm saying even for a movie that you wouldn't particularly like by Fincher, you would still want to know the ending.
Yeah.
Like you would not abandon it.
Yeah. And I've still watched all of his movies more than once.
Yeah.
Except Panic Room, but even still I'll probably watch Panic Room after this. Yeah.
Like I could sit and I have sat and watched Seven or the Panic Room or whatever with my mom, or watch Zodiac with my little brother.
Watching Seven with your mom might be a stretch.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, banger performance.
Every time I watch, I absolutely love Seven, but every time I watch that movie, I'm just like, wow, this is mental. This is sadistic. This film is insane. Yeah. The thing that always boggles my mind about Seven, among so many other things that I love about it, is like even today when I watch it, I'm just like, how is this movie from 1995? It feels like it was made yesterday.
Yes.
Like it could have been made like
I think
anytime.
also that trope is like taken and copied across TV shows or like murder investigation shows, that every time you see it come up, even in 2012 or 2015, you'd be like, that's Seven.
Well,
that's like Seven again.
Mindhunter is like
Mindhunter.
very much like Seven in many ways.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's weird. Much like Seven, it has a timeless feel, even though Mindhunter is set in like the 70s. Like it still feels like a different. It feels like so modern in its creation, and Seven does as well. Like you don't need any of the. When I watch it, I'm just kind of like, nothing about this screams the 90s to me. It's just like because Morgan Freeman hasn't aged a day, and like Brad Pitt still looks like a fucking Adonis.
Oh God!
But the like. And Goop has done wonders for Gwyneth. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you don't need the trappings of like the time. It just feels timeless. And that's what's so, even with Fincher, with The Social Network.
Yeah.
It does not feel
no.
It's the opposite, because it feels, because of what we know about Meta now, John's favorite company of all time. Like, that movie still feels a little old-fashioned and of its time when you know what's happened since, you know, all the genocides and stuff, which are in no way connected to Meta at all. You know, all of that stuff. But like, I don't know, it's an incredible movie that still feels of its time, whereas like something like Seven, Zodiac, they feel so modern because they're kind of removed out of the timeline in a way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I gotta say the same. Fight Club feels very similar, because a lot of the concerns of Fight Club's thematic material, I understand them the more and more I get older. You know,
100%. Like it's like what you tell younger boys. Like the idea is not to make Fight Club your mentor.
It's just to be friends, be nice.
Fucking speaking of like Fight Club, at some point, I have a note here. Where'd it go? Tyler Durden's baby brother comes back to see Mommy Blanchett. So we'll cut that in for later. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
So Fincher's good.
Yeah, Fincher stay good.
By the time this comes out, The Killer will be coming out in like a week, I think. So
perfect.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Perfect.
Okay, let's talk about the fucking plot of this.
Get into this goddamn
movie.
baby.
We open in this hospital. A very old Cate Blanchett in old person makeup, looking all old and shit.
She's doing the most old, dude.
Yeah,
I don't think I've heard an old person ever sound that old.
That voice is, it's a lot. It's funny, I actually watched like a brief clip of Cate Blanchett talking about this movie, and how it's really interesting, because she's Cate Blanchett is a lot like in that interview in Tar, where she just like talks very expressively about stuff. Like she's a fucking actress. It's amazing. But she had this like this little clip where they're talking about Benjamin Button, and she talks about she'd never worked with Fincher before, and like the legend is that Fincher makes you do 100 takes, and the idea is that like you get to this point of exhaustion, and then in that point real truth comes out of the performance, which isn't like, she said, she was like, that's the legend. I think the most we ever did, she was like, the most we ever did was like 37 takes, but like whatever.
Holy
like I'm there.
Shit.
That's a lot, right? But she said part of the exhaustion was that shooting on digital as opposed to film, which she wasn't used to at the time. Remember, this is 2008.
Yeah.
She was like, it's just, she felt the turnaround so quick. So they're just constantly take after take after take after take, and she said she did feel that, where she's like, you dip down into this like level of despair, and then you come out of it with this second wind of like, and then you give this like great take or whatever. And I thought that was really interesting. So it's funny because she said that, and then in the behind the scenes, Jared Harris was like, Jared Harris, who's a fucking king.
Jared Harris, son of Richard Harris,
which we embarrassingly both just learned.
Fucking Dumbledore's son. Who
Richard Harris's son.
Can't believe did not make that connection.
Jared, I'm very proud of you for your work in Benjamin Button.
And?
The Terror.
And?
That's it.
Chernobyl.
Whatever.
He's over it.
I hated Chernobyl. No, so, but Jared Harris, he was like, oh yeah, I don't care how many takes it was. I just love to act. It's just like, it's great. Yeah.
I'm from elsewhere entirely.
The thing is that there's this legend around Fincher that he's like really, really hard on his crew and stuff, and like can be very demanding, which I found really interesting. There's a piece on The Ringer, actually, all of these interviews with people who have worked with him into this big like piece talking about what he's like. But if you watch the behind the scenes for this movie specifically, everyone unanimously seemed to be like, no, this was great. This was a great experience to work for this guy, basically, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
good guy Fincher.
So Cate Blanchett doing the most with her accent.
There's a really nice dialogue very early on in the film when the daughter of Cate Blanchett is like, I'm gonna miss you when you die. Like, are you afraid? And Cate Blanchett says, I'm curious what comes next.
Mm-hmm.
So just like almost title drop right away.
What?
I'm curious case of what comes next.
New Orleans. So she tells the story of Mr. Cake,
Mr. Gatto,
Mr. Gatto, a little drop by Elias Koteas,
My
just
God.
sneaking into the movie, not even fucking recognizable. Elias Koteas plays Mr. Gatto, a blind clockmaker whose son goes off to World War I. He's commissioned to make a clock for the train station.
Mm-hmm.
His son dies in World War I. He finishes the clock, and he unveils it to the crowd and to Teddy Roosevelt himself. And the clock is running backwards, and he says that he hopes so that time could run backwards to bring back all the people the sons we lost in World War I.
Ugh.
Very, very, really.
Already fucking
like,
got me.
5 or so minutes of filmmaking, I think, is really unbelievable. And the amount of stuff that's in that little sequence is like, they had to make a whole film in this film. Like, there's the scenes, like when you look at the men running backwards and like the explosions going off, it's like, Jesus, they have to like film a whole fucking battlefield for like 20 seconds, like less than 20 seconds.
Not even.
It's like great. And then he rows off to sea, never to be seen again, in his rowboat, which another incredible shot.
Towards the end, he's like, I hope you enjoy my clock.
That line really gets me.
Yeah.
I really think about that line a lot, where he's like, I hope you enjoy my clock. It's like so like his delivery and
so
stuff.
So clear.
It's really beautiful. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then back in present day, Daisy asks her daughter to start reading out of this other diary that's hanging around in the room.
Yeah.
And it's the diary of Benjamin Button, who was born on November 11th, 1918, the day that World War I ends. And his father sees him, and much like the Penguin in Batman Returns, he runs off with the baby to try and dump it in a fucking sewer drain. Yeah.
So the baby's born, and Mr. Button, Father Button, looks at his face, and the way he yeets that fucking baby from the immediate whiplash. The baby should have died within 0.3 seconds of getting swooped into the air. Oh my! And then he like bolts down the street. This baby just fucking rattling like head in the wind.
Yeah,
it is so unintentionally funny.
Decrepit old bones.
It's rough, dude. It's like, yo, just fucking stomp the baby's head in. Give it a break. Holy shit.
It does remind me a lot of like in Batman Returns when they see the penguin baby. But like, I love that scene in Batman Returns because the guy just goes in the room and then you just hear him screaming his fucking head off, and it's so funny to me that it's just like that's men's normal reaction when they see their baby for the first time. Yeah.
Oh, the Lord done something here.
Oh, Taraji is amazing. So he puts this baby on the steps of this old folks home, which I don't know if he knows that it's an old folks home, but whatever. And then Mahershala Ali, young Mahershala.
What's up, Blade? I'm sorry.
Pre that for sure. But pre-Academy Award king. They find him at the bottom of the steps. This is actually funny because Mahershala Ali was like, he said they did so many takes of them walking down the steps, and it was just shooting his feet, and he was like, it was crazy. We did many shots of that. Yeah. So part of the Fincher thing is alive and well.
Yeah.
Queenie adopts him. Queenie, played by Taraji.
Mm-hmm.
He's old.
He's so old.
He's decrepit and old, but he's a 7-year-old underneath it all the whole time, and he kind of lives in this old folks' home where death is a frequent guest, so he kind of gets used to all of that.
Mm-hmm. I'm so happy that they showed us this old house routine, like what goes on in an old folks' home. Not
It's
for too
sweet.
long, but it's like, it was great because you hear Benjamin Button's like monologue in the background where he's like, I could hear the house breathing.
Yeah.
Like in the night, there's like the old guy raising the flag buck naked, and like he goes through his routine of like
Yeah.
day
That
to
stuff
day.
is funny. Yeah.
It's so nice.
There's this like, I think that it's nice because it's this sweet kind of thing about when people get very old, they sometimes get forgotten
yeah,
by their children and
Oh, God.
society.
100%.
And yet there's like something that's just so amazing is that Taraji's character is like, she's like a fucking saint.
Yeah,
bro.
100. Yeah,
Like she
Oh,
just
gosh.
runs this home and she's just like, she does fucking, there's that scene where she finds the baby and she takes Benjamin in and she's basically like, this is like a blessing from God, even though everyone is like, ugh,
Yeah.
gross. She's like, this is like a blessing from God. And then even as she's like trying to like put this baby and like coax this baby into not crying or whatever, there's these old people being like, where's my necklace and stuff. She's just like, fucking hold on,
Give me
I'm
a
doing like a
goddamn
million
second.
things, just relax.
But like she's so at home with the OG gang.
Yeah.
She knows how to handle old folk. So
She's-
what's
she's-
a baby any different?
And the thing too is that like, as you learn later when she has a child of her own, it's like she wants to be a mother,
Yeah,
but kind of she is a mother to everybody.
yeah,
And she's so ready to be a mother of her own, and then she gets Benjamin because I think it's implied that like she wasn't able to have a child of
Yeah.
her own, and then
Yeah.
eventually she does, but whatever.
Do you think the movie would have been any different if it didn't immediately be like, oh, old baby reverses in age and also grows up in an old age home surrounded by old people? Like, do you think it's going ham on using old people as a plot device? What if he was left on the steps of a church or of a
Or an
random
an
house?
orphanage. I think that's part of the fantasy aspect, is that the coincidence of him being left on the steps of an old folks home
Yeah.
actually works out pretty well. you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it all ties in,
'Cause-
so it's too perfect for me. It's
Because
just like,
instead of like feeling alienated by
Yeah.
all of these older people,
yeah,
he kind of gets to like, because they all think he's an old man.
yeah.
It's like he kind of gets to exist within them and then learn from the wisdom of the olds or whatever. But like
Yeah.
it's kind of like a happy coincidence in the film,
Because
I
good,
guess.
because otherwise, oh, man, like what if he was just dropped at the
Military
footsteps
barracks.
of? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's over for him.
Yeah. He meets a young Daisy, played by our girl Elle Fanning.
Yeah,
Cute as a button in this. She's
Oh my God.
quite young, but she's just
what a little
adorable.
baby.
Yeah, does a good job. But she's not in it for very long. She's like 15 minutes. And then later he kind of ventures out on his own. Not to
Oh, but just like when he's still a baby and he's like trying to get to know her, you know, they play under the table.
yeah.
That scene is so good because he
Yeah.
obviously visibly looks 80 and she's just a little child, and she almost touches his face, and she says, you're a different child, a man child.
Yeah.
And
She knows there's something different about him.
it's like obviously palpably uncomfortable, right? Because it's pairing this fantasy of something real, which is aging and dying,
Mm-hmm.
old and young, with like the reality of seeing a grown man with a little girl under a
Yeah.
table.
Yeah.
So you don't want to, like, it's not supposed to make you feel like, oh, she's accepting of this weird baby. You can't shake that he's a grown ass man.
Which is the misunderstanding that
Yeah.
her grandmother comes
Yeah,
in.
which
like,
her
drags
grandma's
her
like, you
away,
should be
right?
ashamed of
Also,
yourself.
I have to mention before this too, he makes friends with Oti, the African pygmy
Yeah.
guy. Who that guy is great.
Stole the
He's
scene.
so awesome.
So
Yeah.
good.
I keep thinking about it because in the behind the scenes thing, they talk about this, like, you know, the scene where they ride on the
Tram?
tram.
Yeah.
Hurricane Katrina had just happened in
Mm.
New Orleans, so
Mhm.
the Public Works Department of New Orleans had gone from 700 employees down to like 14. So they couldn't get anyone in the city to help them do almost anything.
Shit.
So they couldn't make this tram go on this track, and they had to like drag it by this like cable pulley system, but they had to have it stop perfectly so that the guy could step right on, and
Oh.
it was really interesting, like, to see the kind of stuff that they did, because
So
New
cool.
Orleans was really fucked up, right? Like they almost
Yeah.
couldn't. They decided to film there, and then they almost couldn't film there because of Katrina. And yeah. Anyway, cool.
What a little tidbit.
Yeah.
Damn.
And I learned so much stuff.
And then the baby goes to the sea.
And then the baby meets Mike.
Captain
Mike.
Captain Jared Harris.
Yeah. On the tugboat Chelsea. Captained by Mike Clark. He's an artist. That's my Jared Harris.
First thing he sees, old man, and he's like, "When was the last time you had a woman?" Like, why is that you're thinking of a shriveled little dick already? Like, you've been out at sea, my guy. Think of other things. Unless that's his type.
That's what he's thinking of. It's like, I don't want to go to the sex worker house alone.
Yeah, that's fair.
I want to take this old man with me.
Also, Jared Harris looking like motherfucking Jude Law in that lighting.
Until we watched it this week, I had forgotten Jared Harris was in this. And then when he shows up, I'm like, of course fucking Jared Harris is in this. Of course. And he's such a fucking great actor.
Yeah, dude.
He's fantastic in this.
He would have been a great Dumbledore, so you know what? Not that Jude Law wasn't, but Fantastic Beasts.
They look like fucking brothers, dude.
If you need another little baby Dumbledore.
Why are you talking about Fantastic Beasts? Not like we're gonna do it in the future. Come
Don't
on,
worry about it. It's not gonna come up or anything.
Get your life together. Never gonna talk about Jude Law.
Yo, fucking. I also want to say, old timey men's underwear. It's a look.
Sexy.
So good.
Yeah.
Hint.
I'm not. In 50 years, we can talk about it. All right.
All right.
He also meets his father, not knowing that it's his father. As he works on this tugboat, as he gets older, he meets his father, not knowing that this is his dad.
After having just got laid for the first time.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. This is what you want. and his dad is like, he like makes friends with him casually without kind of telling him who he is.
Ugh.
And then eventually Benjamin goes off to Russia with the tugboat crew to, I don't know, haul fucking caviar around or whatever the fuck they wanted. Soviet prisoners, I don't know.
Oh my God.
And he has a little fling with Tilda Swinton. Now,
what a random thing.
I don't really care much for this section.
That's what I mean by the little meanderings and the little trying to fill the plot with shit that just happens. Not saying we don't need a Tilda Swinton. She's great.
Tilda Swinton's great in everything.
But doesn't add to the plot. It's just like a filler thing that you can catch and release.
Now that we're sitting here talking about it, I don't like this section very much. I think it's kind of slow and boring. And like you said, it doesn't add a lot to the plot. However, if we're thinking about the thematic things about time and things like that. So Tilda Swinton, she tried to swim the English Channel. Mm-hmm. And then she couldn't make it. And they asked her, would you ever do it again? And she said, why wouldn't I? This is when she's a very young woman.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I never did. Later, there's a callback where he sees her on the news. Right. As a woman who swam the English Channel. And she's very old.
Yeah.
And she kept at it. And it's kind of like this, the general theme of like your life doesn't stop just because you're elderly or something like that, which is which is kind of Benjamin's whole thing. It's like,
I don't think Benjamin had anything to do with it directly.
No, I don't either.
At all?
That's kind of the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So even without that interaction, whatever. It could have been like one conversation he had on a train with a lady met like Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
Who like talks about her shit without them having to be like, all right, we will sex each other now. I will have a torrid affair with old Brad Pitt. Yeah. Cheat on my husband. Like all this shit for 27 minutes.
The passivity of his character gets a little frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
And then later when he starts to make real solid decisions about his life, they're a little bit like, what? I don't know. Is this what you're doing? You know?
Yeah.
Basically, he has this affair with Tilda Swinton, and then she kind of disappears. Her husband's a British spy. World War II.
That's because the next morning
World War II fucking starts and
Pearl Harbor.
Everyone's like,
attacked.
Oh, this might be a problem. And then they get commissioned as like into the war for some reason.
For the Navy. Their boat gets called as a rescue.
Yeah, and they go and they get in a little dogfight with a German submarine, which is
so fucking good.
Good scene. Very
Such a good scene. Yeah. And like Jared Harris at his best on water. He should always be you asked me like, was he in the fucking Titanic? This motherfucker's always on a boat.
Yeah.
And he should have been, because what a king. I
could see him taking Kate Winslet's place in Titanic. I think.
He 100% could do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, KW, but like, get off the door.
I want you to draw me in this. Only this. They both have red hair.
Me and my family jewels. It's his balls. Okay.
Picasso something.
Sick.
something Picasso.
No. Ugh. But I don't know. It was that battle scene itself. Like the way the tugboat ultimately climbs over the submarine after smashing into it. Mwah.
They filmed that all in a set.
Dude.
It's all special effects.
Y'all, if you don't sit through the movie, sit through that scene. It's short. It's a banger.
Scary. Yeah.
It's scary. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, and then basically Benjamin Button and one other guy are the only ones saved from that, and Benjamin's like, I didn't really enjoy being in the war, so I'm gonna go home to New Orleans.
To Queenie, his mom.
So he returns back to Queenie, and Mahershala Ali has died.
Yeah.
Queenie is a mom and all that, and
he meets the guy who got struck by lightning 7 times.
Again, yeah.
And every time he talks about it, there's a little one cutscene montage of how he gets hit by lightning.
Amazing filmmaking.
So good.
This is the one though where he goes back and the guy says he's been struck by lightning. Did I ever tell you he got struck by lightning 7 times?
Yeah.
And the next scene, what's he doing?
He meets Cate Blanchett.
He goes off to try and seduce Daisy.
Woo! Yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh my God, it's all good. Because she's all grown up now, baby.
Yeah.
Grown.
One of the things is that, okay, Cate Blanchett is a beautiful woman. But in this scene, like, she's supposed to be like 20. And I'm like, no. Don't buy it.
No.
Yeah.
She's also like, she does the perfect 20s acting of being an annoying girl that only talks about herself and like New York and everything is perfect and it's great.
And also just being the center of the universe.
Yeah.
And like being like, oh, Benjamin, how can you want to be in love with me? I'm busy fucking this guy. And
I'm out here with young Brad Pitt. Another Brad Pitt.
Oh, sorry, my dad's here.
Dad Pitt is here. Go away. So he turns down sex, saying that he might disappoint her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's all up for it. And then she goes back to New York, and then Benjamin reconnects with his father, who then admits. He says, I've been your father this whole time.
I got a button factory and everything.
Yeah, he's terminally ill, and he says, I want to leave all of this to you, all these buttons. Fuck zippers. Fuck y'all. Don't zip nothing.
What a loss.
There's a deleted scene where Benjamin zips up something and his father slaps his hand away. I'm just kidding.
It's like the multiverse, but it's like Benjamin Zipper. And he ages back and forth. Sometimes he's young, sometimes he's old. Sorry, I'm done.
There's a nice scene where his dad, I think, had talked about waking up to watch the sunrise, and then Benjamin takes him out to his old house on this lake, and that's a really nice scene.
So beautiful.
It's really beautiful.
Is that a real place? It looks like a fucking green screen. It's unreal. It's this long pier that it looks like it goes into the water.
Yeah, it might be a green screen.
So fucking, it's just like blue, pink, orange water.
I'm sure that when they're facing the camera at the sunset part.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think, okay, so you turn around and you see the house on this lake, and I bet that's real. But when you turn around and you're sitting on the pier looking at the sunset, to get it perfect, they probably had to do it on a green screen in a studio.
But it is beautiful. There's like a nice closing moment. This dialogue keeps coming up when his dad Brad Pitt says,
you just have to let go.
Yeah, you can be mad as a mad dog the way things went, but in the end you have to let go.
Yeah.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah, that's what Jared Harris has said to him as he dies on the boat.
That's my daily, basically.
Yeah, you just out there living life.
That's me this whole week, man. Yeah. Every day I'm like, am I having a small stroke or should I just let go? And I do.
Yeah.
I let go.
Benjamin Button, or maybe this is a scene, but he goes off to get Daisy in New York, and she's busy being a fucking hot socialite.
Yeah.
And then basically she's like, man, I'm busy fucking all these
I'm
folks.
out here.
I'm out here doing it. I'm out here getting it, bro.
Getting my pirouette wet.
Fucking dancing and just all sorts. Yeah. And Benjamin is like, oh, I'm just in New Orleans. That's it. That's all he says.
Somebody feed somebody.
And then Daisy's dancing career ends as she's hit by a car by a fucking Parisian.
That's cool.
Those goddamn Parisians at it again.
Classic.
Just fucking running
Ain't
people
nobody
over.
driving that city, dude.
Dude, you ever been there?
Still facts.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Did you know that 57% of the residents of Paris have a suspended driver's license?
What the fuck? Okay, you know what? It's too gullible for it.
It wouldn't fucking surprise me the way the French drive, though.
Yeah,
Come on.
But like, it's cobble roads. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some are. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them are.
And Benjamin goes to Paris, and he's like, "Hey, sorry about your leg," and she's like, "Get out of my life." And then a couple years later, she comes back to New Orleans, and is like, "No. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's get it.
Stick it in."
Now, I have to say,
yes,
from here on is the best part of the film, in my opinion. This is when it starts to get going.
I agree.
One of my main criticisms of the movie, besides my agreement that the script is not strong and Brad Pitt's characterization is not strong, even though his performance is good, I don't think the character is very good.
Mm-hmm.
The movie's very long, and it meanders, as you said. And then eventually the love story starts way too late.
Way too late.
And I'm like, oh, God, finally.
Well, they're almost 50 when it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
43, they meet.
She's 43, he's 49.
Yeah. Something like that. And Taraji dies. They move in together. There's a good montage with the studio apartment. They go traveling all around the world and shit.
Yeah.
Then they move in together. Daisy opens her ballet studio, and then gets pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And Benjamin is like, "But I'm going to be a kid soon, too."
Yeah. You won't have two babies?
This is a kind of a weak point of the script, I think, is the idea of him deciding to leave. I don't think is a strong enough plot point. You know,
I thought that too. And I made a note about it. I was like, would he really be the guy who, after being left by his dad, be the type of guy who leaves his kid?
Very good point that I never thought of, yes.
But all he's known all his life is death.
He knows what it is to take care of someone to death. Right?
100%.
Yeah.
Like, imagine the first 30 years, all you see is death, death, death. Because you're surrounded by old people in an oldish home. And so he knows the frailty of what that looks like.
Good point, yeah.
And thinking of that in reverse is what he would subject Cate Blanchett's character to, having to watch him die. So maybe it's a decision where he's gained some wisdom over the years to be like, I love this kid, like I want to be with you, but the pain is worse of a trade-off than to just continue being here and being a burden. That's
the whole thing, right? But I've never really thought of it that way, but you're right. That's a good point. But it still definitely rubbed people the wrong way.
I think because it was done so abruptly. It's like he just made the decision on a whim and we didn't get a chance to sit with it for a second.
We also don't...
We don't see his struggle. He doesn't have anything in his eyes.
We don't get much of a chance where he's just like... Maybe this was a bad idea. Instead, he's off fucking cavorting around the world and playing chess in India and shit and being like, I don't know, I thought it was a great decision.
No. It's like, no.
Anyway, then, he returns to Daisy as a very young man in like 1980. She's in her 60s or so.
Mm-hmm.
And sees his child, who's like the same age as him, and then then eventually like Daisy's remarried to a widower, and he's a good father and good guy and stuff. And then eventually the young girl goes off. She grows up. Her husband dies. Daisy's husband dies, and then they find Benjamin as a young child. Young child. He's like 10 or whatever, and he's just dementia'd up, and she moves into the old folks home to help take care of him.
Yeah.
And then he gets smaller and smaller and smaller and gets less can't remember, and then becomes a baby and dies, which is very sad.
Like, more than the little baby kind of dying in her arms, she says like the last glimpse, like this little small child looks up at her and she's sure he recognizes her.
Yeah.
But like even sadder than that is when they're just like walking down a street and it's like an avenue of trees, and this like little kid just like looks up at tall Cate Blanchett, and it's a shot of them from behind.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And the kid is forgetting how to walk.
Fucking hell. Yeah. Just like it's really broke sad. Me. Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, that ending is very sad. And then it's the Carolyn in present day, Carolyn the daughter, she comes to realize.
Yeah. That was her dad.
Benjamin was her dad. She realizes actually longer ago in the plot, but whatever.
What a mind fuck.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So at the very end, she, like, Carolyn is basically like, holy, what a mind fuck, and then kind of leaves the room.
Yeah.
And then old Cate Blanchett passes away.
Yeah.
And you kind of fade out of that into that final montage, which ends with the floodwaters coming into the room with the clock.
Such a fucking excellent decision to set the movie.
The clock, which had been replaced the year before Benjamin dies with a digital clock at the train station. That's the, yeah.
All of this set in the backdrop of Katrina. What a great idea.
Cool idea, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Banger after banger. Good job.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, why did I hate this movie so much when I saw it when I was younger? I just didn't have the patience for it.
It's really sentimental.
I didn't want to see like the slowest shit in the world with like an old man baby.
I think this is my own feeling, and maybe like I think the older you get, not that we're like fucking elderly or anything.
Yeah, but in my mind.
But when you get older and you're like, man, time sure happens.
Yeah.
Movies about time and the passage of time and what it does to people are a lot more effective than when you're like 15, where you're just kind of like, fuck, everything takes forever and I'm bored all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really understand how it, I don't know, it doesn't
well,
fuck
you don't
want
to take a beat because you want to be that simulated.
But you also think that like when you're like, oh man, when I'm 35, I'm just gonna be an old piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like, what do I? Yeah. But like you really think that, and then by the time you kind of get here, you're just kind of like, oh fuck me, man. Like,
I know.
Yeah, time.
Which is why like nostalgia hits different when you're watching a piece of work, art, or movie younger versus older.
But when you're 15, you don't really have nostalgia.
You got nothing.
You don't you remember. The thing is too is like you remember everything.
Yeah.
And so you kind of know why it affects you in that way. Whereas like when you get older, you start to forget a lot of shit that you never thought you'd forget. And then weird things affect you, like smells affect you, where you're just kind of like, why does that? And you're like, oh, it smells like this person I used to know or something, you know? Like I have that. There's this like very specific perfume that sometimes I smell that I'm like, it isn't not even a romantic thing. I'm just like, this just smells like this woman who I used to know when I was like in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And it's all these random things. And then, but like, when you're young, you're just kind of like, especially with movies, you're just kind of like, I just want the action. I just want the stuff to happen.
Yeah.
But you can't really feel the thematic,
because like our mind can't like quantify that in real time. So it's like, what is the point of talking about death to a child?
Yeah. It's kind of like a really good example of that is like, I feel like if you were really young and you saw Interstellar, and you were like, well, why is it such a big deal that like the time dilation thing? It's like, well, because he never gets to watch his daughter grow into a woman. Like he never gets to watch her grow up into a real person. He leaves one day and he comes back and she's like
90 years old.
Like that's fucked up.
That's fucking.
He's never there for his grandchildren, never there for his son. Like all of this stuff is like, and I don't even have kids, but I'm like, yeah, you see that, right? But
like you can experience the loss of it even without having it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what's another really good example of that is like, even though I really loved this movie when I was young, like it affects me a lot differently now, is No Country for Old Men, where like I get Tommy Lee Jones's experience of that story like more than I did when I was younger. When I was younger, I just thought it was a great crime film, and it is. But now you're just kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of understand what Tommy Lee Jones is talking about.
He's so fucking tired, that guy. Poor guy. With good reason.
Yeah. This movie is good.
It makes you appreciate loss in a different way than like other kind of sad movies about death and shit do. Mm-hmm. There's still a lot of like positive takeaways, but I like that it ends on a really sad note of a baby dying. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it had like a really peaceful ending, this was peaceful. I get like if it had like a happy ending where everything had worked out and she did accept Benjamin Button as her own husband baby.
Yeah.
And stayed together forever. Weird.
But I also think like part of the sadness for Cate Blanchett's character is like there's also joy in growing old together.
Yeah.
And being able to still be like the same, of this similar age and experience things in the same way. But then the thing too is like for older people and say one person gets dementia or something like that, like you see that kind of the difficulty of that, right?
100%.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just,
I guess that's why like a lot of people, well, that among other reasons, but people take it weirdly when someone has a 40-year gap in their marriage. Or like when an octogenarian starts dating the 25, 30-year-old in Hollywood.
well, I mean, where else?
I don't know, France? They fucking get up to shit.
I mean, I just think that's like it's just like a weird age gap because it's like, I wonder what they talk about.
Because like one party doesn't want to feel like they're dying all the time. Because they don't feel it in their heart that they're old. Like I don't have a day where I think I'm like, oh yeah, in my mind, I'm in my 30s. Like I know we're still like somewhere in our 20s, late teens in our head, but we're feeling.
I don't feel that way though.
Like even like especially when you're traveling or having like a goofy thought, or I don't know. I don't particularly feel different than I did when I was younger.
Do you think about like growing older though?
Not like that. Not in a way that it makes me sad.
Oh, interesting.
Because I can't even comprehend it. Because I'm just like, I'm a baby. I'm not gonna be 50 for 50 years.
That is crazy. That is so weird.
Right? It's like that, and that kind of like not wanting to acknowledge a reality check is what a lot of people, especially in a world of glamour, might not want to give up.
Yeah. I think lots of normal people don't want to give that.
Which
shit up
you see with Cate Blanchett's character in one scene where she can't even take a lap around the swimming pool, and it's a silent scene. She just looks at a younger girl, like swimming and getting out of water, and she just starts crying.
I think that's the thing though, is that like her career and her profession comes crashing down so spectacularly because she gets horrifically injured that it's like, I mean, think of if you're in a physical job, that is part of getting older, right? Look at sports people.
It's over.
Is like, you know,
oh my God.
Yeah, and that just, it's much like our girl in fucking Red Sparrow.
Yeah.
It just fucking, that's the end.
Yeah.
And that, even though she's young when it happens, like she's in her late 20s in the movie, it's like, yeah, that's like such a signal of, it's like, I'm not who I used to be. Because I used to be this young, nimble, athletic thing. And then through no fault of my own,
it's so
boom,
sudden.
I cannot recover from this.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's permanent.
Yeah. Which, I like, if that happened to me, like I fucking like
a pit of depression.
I like fell running the other day. I like tripped running the other day on like a buckled sidewalk, and I was just like, oh, I feel like old and shitty. You know? Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe that's why there's like naivety with how I think and stuff.
I don't think you're that naive though.
Well, in my mind, I feel it, right? Because I still want to feel like I'm younger or think that I'm younger, because I don't really have thoughts of doing taxes.
Well, to be fair, no one wants to think about that.
Yeah.
But I think everyone operates with that level, like a specific level of naivety to a different degree, because like you don't want to sit around and just think like, oh, I'm getting older and
it's not even. It's like, I don't want to book the fucking dentist appointment. I want someone else to do it for me.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
And every time I have to pick up a phone call, I'm just like, it's over, man.
That's why fucking people who may or may not have starred in The Godfather date a 23-year-old and are also wealthy enough to probably have fucking people do it for them anyway.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You know?
So they just get the 23-year-old for the chat, I guess. I don't know. For the lovely, like,
for the banter.
For her being like, do you want to go see Across the Spider-Verse this weekend?
And he'd be like, what's an emoji?
And him being like, it's got a great web. I'm talking about no one specifically. Yeah, anything else on this?
Just that stuff is sad, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Because you're all going to die. Except me.
Yeah.
I'm out here.
Some of you are going to die soon.
Ooh. Ooh.
And you don't even know it.
You don't know it. You don't know it. But you're not going to feel it. So it's going to be good.
Yeah. And you know what? To be honest, you're some of the lucky ones.
Yeah, I'm
This
tired.
is a hard movie to talk about. It's because there are so many problems with it.
Yeah.
And also so many things that I really like.
Yeah. I would have liked it to be a short film.
Shorter for me, definitely.
For sure.
It's also like one of the few Fincher movies like I don't love rewatching, not just because it's very long, but also like the emotional weight of it, I think is a lot.
I don't know if it has rewatchability in its entirety. For me, like,
Especially-
I'd be not conked out.
Especially not compared to his other movies.
God, no.
Like
Yeah,
his
yeah.
other movies are just like a tall drink of water, man.
Oh yeah, you
Like,
throw on 7 for
fuck.
like an ambient Wednesday afternoon. 'Cause-
Yeah.
yeah, you
I
do.
am a weirdo like
You
that.
sweet
I was
egg.
watching Girl with the Dragon Tattoo the other day, and I was like, "This
Just
movie is
guilty
amazing.
pleasure.
I love it.
No
Yeah.
guilt. No guilt.
No guilt.
Just straight pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, David.
Love you, Finch.
Thank you for listening. I don't think we said what we are.
It's been the low ceiling, guys. I'm John, and I'm Pre. And, you know, we got baby John Button
No words.
here, too.
Not saying
No.
anything.
Oh, did you pause me?
Nope. No. I'm just over here letting you vamp. And you
It's
vamp
my
on.
turn. It's my part.
It's weird. This room is like dark right now.
Yeah.
We're sitting in the dark.
All you see is my teeth.
Yeah. Because of all the dentistry you've been up to.
Oh, yeah.
All right, that's enough of this. Benjamin Button, give it a chance.
Call your
Watch it.
mom.
Call your mom.
Tell him you love him.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.